Enjoy back again to FilmiRecaps. I'll show you a sci-fi, romance, drama film from 2016 called Passengers today. Spoilers forward. Be careful and take care. The interstellar spaceship Avalon is visible going through area, headed to a globe that is colonized Homestead 2. All of its quarters tend to be bare, the vessel is hands-free. The 258 crew members plus the 5,000 individuals have been in hibernation. Abruptly, the ship passes with unbuckle. This is certainly asteroid that's weakening its shields. Energy is diverted to your main shield. However, the ship is for a collision program with the asteroid. This is certainly huge. Abruptly, the asteroid collides aided by the ship, causing malfunctions that are numerous. The ship starts self-reparations, but among the hibernation pods activates. The passenger awakened is Jim Preston, an engineer that is technical. Their pod opens up as well as in system that is computerized together with his awakening, telling him he spent 120 many years in suspended cartoon and that the ship is 4 months far from Homestead 2. He's informed that he should be able to spend the period experiencing the luxurious aspects of the ship. Jim obtains directions about their ID musical organization, their cabin, additionally the activities that are primaries to get involved down ahead of the arrival in the world. Excited and nervous to meet the people from the ship, he gets prepared, will leave their cabin and walks into an automatic class intended for an understanding team that is entire. Jim seems just a little nervous due to the fact hologram explains the specific situation on Earth, calling it overpopulated, overrated and overpriced. It informs him to put on his concerns into the final end associated with the tutorial. But Jim keeps asking the reason why he's the only one there. He realizes that the hologram can't respond to him and goes to look for other individuals. He reaches the concourse that is main of ship. No one can there be both, but an automatic desk. This is certainly informational to simply help. Jim asks to speak with a person that is real. It directs him down to speak with a steward. But once he discovers that nobody is there too, he asks to talk with the captain. He doesn't have accessibility get in. He can see that none regarding the main team is awake either when he gets to the bridge. And even though Jim eventually goes to the observatory, where he discovers that the ship is in fact 90 years away from Homestead 2. He realizes because he does not know how to get back into hibernation, which he woke as much as soon. Therefore he rushes back again to the concourse and sends a message back again to Earth asking what he should do. The communications system notifies him that the call this is certainly overpriced. Earth would just take more or less 55 many years to get an answer back. Jim is devastated. He walks around and finds the vessel's club, where someone is seen by him. As he's conversing with the bartender, anything seems unusual about him. A glass or two, Jim realizes he's an android as he goes to get. It is known as Arthur. Jim would like to get more information for him becoming here in advance from him, but he can't also reveal to the android how it is possible. Jim wakes up inside the cabin. The day this is certainly next would go to the cantina, where he rapidly realizes that a lot of the things from the menu tend to be reserved for gold course people only. He gets his coffee. This is certainly plain, and to work out how to fix his hibernation chamber. He handles to get it running and lies straight down inside of the pod after he gets all of the resources. But nothing takes place. Next, he chooses to utilize the resources he discovered to get involved with the staff's hibernation chambers. It doesn't work either. Small malfunctions happen all over ship. Jim keeps time for the club to mainly take in, but to speak with Arthur. The android offers him some advice that convinces him to break into one of the class that is gold and try to have some lighter moments in the ship. Jim tries all of the restaurants, the games, the entertainment system, but after a while he becomes much more miserable. To be truth be told, there alone. One day, he gets intoxicated and wanders around the hibernation pods as he stumbles into an airlock with spacesuits created for spacewalks. Jim gets to a suit and goes to the airlock, pushes a lever after which the option to release the airlock home. When beyond your ship, he is mesmerized because of the view. He is the sole conscious being that is people's that moment in time. Jim releases the magnets on his boots and floats in space, experiencing devastated. He returns in, takes off the suit, but dates back to the airlock without it on. He pulls the lever, prepared to end all of it, but changes his mind within the moment that his last runs back inside and slips on a container. Jim stacks up and it is instantly interested in a woman in just one of the pods, known as Aurora. He pursued of her data when you look at the directory and listens to her passenger interview, getting enamored along with her. Later on, his scene sitting close to her pod, still enjoying her interviews. Back the club, he's reading a few of her work and it is talking to Arthur about her writing. He becomes enthusiastic about the irony of his scenario, gonna another world for a much better life, waking up very early and not getting indeed there, and finding their lady, this is certainly perfect for her to be away from reach. Jim keeps thinking about her and starts obtaining the idea to upwake her too. He speaks it over with all the android, but he does not comprehend the conundrum. With him, to die regarding the ship if he wakes her up for his or her own advantage, he would be stranding her there. Jim determines by he can't overlook it against it first, but as time goes, until one day he changes their mind. He visits her pod and manages to trigger it. As she is getting out of bed and dealing with the same procedure, he conceals and goes back to their room while he performed. A little that is small, he would go to the primary concourse, looking for her, and there she actually is, in the same way puzzled while he had been a go-year. Jim informs her they truly are those who are just and takes her into the observatory. He then informs her that he cannot neither reach the team, nor the main instructions of this ship. Aurora freaks out and really wants to get right back into her pod. Jim explains there is no unique equipment from the ship that can help all of them return back to hibernation, efficiently telling her that they are stranded once they arrive at. They go right back at the concourse, and then he tells her since she just came out of hibernation that she should rest. She seems sorry for him, being forced to spend more compared to alone in the ship year. Jim goes back towards the club, experiencing regretful about what he performed. He asks Arthur not to ever tell Aurora her up, which he was the one that woke. The day this is certainly next, Aurora wakes up. She extends back to your concourse and asks the automatic resources work desk about the hibernation pods. Jim joins her there and they go to get breakfast. Because they leave, some sort is had because of the information work desk of breakdown. Within the cantina, Aurora realizes that Jim is consuming the morning meal. This is certainly same more than a 12 months and gets him one of many gold course menus. They mention the chance to repair the pods, but unlike Jim, Aurora is not willing to call it quits. She searches through the infirmary, then experiences analysis papers, ultimately winding up during the crew's hibernation quarters wanting to break the hinged doors open. Jim notices more malfunctions through the ship. A while later, Aurora laments about her life in the Avalon. She writes, jogs around the ship and swims when you look at the share, becoming a lot more conscious of her scenario. She visits the cantina to interview Jim, convinced that their tale can be interesting. She asks why he immigrated into the colony. Jim responds with slogans through the organization initially, but then further explains he could possibly be a person. He could create a life he hopes that from the new world. Later on, they land in the observatory and Aurora finally shares her reason to be indeed there. Unlike one other passengers in the ship, she's a trip ticket. This is certainly round. Her concept would be to go to Homestead 2, live indeed there for the 12 months and return to Earth, in order to become the first reporter which includes ever before done that. Writing the storyline, this is certainly biggest that ever before had been. Aurora gradually provides through to getting an option to fix their particular predicament. This is certainly existing, and figures out ways to cheer her up. She's taken by him moving to the cinema, also to the basketball judge. Finally, she actually is taken by him to the club to fulfill Arthur. She calms for the little bit until she remembers their situation. Jim is kept alone with the android, experiencing terrible in what he's done to her. The moment that is next seen trying out one thing and in the other, Aurora walks into the observatory to locate a miniature associated with the Chrysler building he designed for her. A while later on, each goes for a day during the bar. They share and diner tales about their particular lives. He could be told through her that her parent passed away whenever she had been a teen. Following the dinner, Jim takes Aurora towards the airlock. In addition, they get into the spacesuits. They go out for the spacewalk collectively. Jim eventually features you to definitely share that experience that is magnificent. Jim switches from the magnets on the shoes, plus they float collectively in area. They arrive right back inside and instantly kiss, retreat to his cabin and sleep together. Right after, they start reciting just like a few. Aurora moves into his cabin and writes about her life on the ship. They jog together, consume together, rest collectively. Jim explores the ship further and discovers the bay. This is certainly hydroponics. He brings Aurora plants. One day the ship passes by way of a monster. This is certainly purple. They're going towards the observatory to see it. It's Aurora's birthday, therefore later that night they celebrate it in just one of the restaurants, which are numerous, the ship then the bar. Jim goes to the washroom and makes the band he created for Aurora, while she remains into the bar chatting with Arthur. The android tells Aurora that Jim woke her up intentionally, not aware he was nonetheless maintained that a key. Suddenly, Jim comes home and she confronts him in absolute disbelief. She runs away panicked and furious. Jim comes home to his cabin to locate all her things gone. He runs, he speaks, she works away into her in the cantina a day later, but the minute Aurora is hopeless. One, she explains to Jim's cabin, punching and throwing him, planning to destroy him night. Speaking with her within the calm him, Jim attempts to apologize and explain their actions to her because she keeps avoiding. This woman is told through him he fell in love with her, but Aurora doesn't care. She cannot forgive him for taking her life. One night, as Jim is in their cabin, another breakdown takes place. The ship deals with a mistake. This is certainly vital. The key command shuts down. Later, he walks into the elevator and it also malfunctions. Aurora walks into the concourse that is main, sees that Jim has actually grown a tree there. Then, she would go to the cantina, where in actuality the meals dispensary is also malfunctioning. Abruptly, each of them hear the voice of the deck man on the comms, asking who planted the tree. They both come across the concourse and discover Gus Mancuso standing in front of Jim's tree. They introduce on their own and tell the chief in regards to the scenario. He does not know the way 3 pods could fail. Mancuso takes all of them to the connection and then he discovers that there surely is something amiss aided by the ship. However, the home elevators, the systems has got to manually be inspected. Them tell Mancuso that malfunctions have already been taking place all over the ship with greater regularity. Once they leave the bridge, a robot very nearly drops to their minds, and the two of he says that shouldn't happen, all of them, just how to collect the info while he reveals Mancuso inspections regarding the pods. When Jim joins him indeed there, he's identified just what happened with Aurora's pod. The deck chief locates just what Jim performed become terrible. Later, he's during the bridge examining the gathered data when Aurora joins him. They speak about what took place with her pod, but this woman is told by him he can't do just about anything about any of it. Jim walks in utilizing the 16th robot. This is certainly damaged. Mancuso feels the hibernation vomiting. As he walks out, he coughs completely blood, so he goes to sleep, but that Aurora can't sleep, so she applies to a swimming evening. Abruptly, there is gravity reduction throughout the ship and she begins drowning due to the fact liquid from the pool techniques with her. The gravity drive resets and she hardly makes it live. They both encounter one another going to discover Mancuso. The 3 of them are back in the bridge, gradually discovering what has been taking place aided by the ship. Mancuso figures out that anything took place 24 months ago, taking out something that is significant. They need to get a hold of and fix what has actually caused the failure, because the whole ship is attempting to pick the slack up. The whole vessel will undoubtedly be stranded when they do not fix. They go to find the irritating issue, but Mancuso faints, therefore Jim and Aurora just take him to the infirmary. He's dying and there aren't any treatments that may end it or prolong suitable time. He's got kept. A while later on, the 3 of all of them meet within the observatory and Mancuso gives Jim his ID bracelet, informs all of them to correct the ship and instantly perishes. Unexpectedly, the lights change to an alarming purple and also the ship begins shaking. Jim tells Aurora they run toward engineering, but there is another failure into the gravity drive. He requires her assistance and immediately a different one that afflicts Arthur as well. Jim deactivates him. They eventually get to manufacturing and commence selecting the difficulty. They believe it is within the recharged power plant, and as they open the hatch, Aurora gets sucked in. The asteroid has triggered a breach when you look at the hull for the reason that area. Jim gets sucked in also, but he holds to the hatch since it keeps shutting on him. Ultimately, he gets sucked in also, but they quickly find a way to seal the breach. Instantly after correcting that nagging problem, Jim understands that there's more than one breach within the hull. The 2 of them proceed with the trajectory for the meteor and locate that the reactor has been hit by a control computer system. Jim believes he can get a hold of replacement parts for it. They find the right part and alter it. However, the procedure of venting the reactor nonetheless fails. It really is carried out by them manually. Nonetheless, it fails once again. Jim figures out to enable them to cool the reactor down, which he has to start the vent home from outside the ship. Each of them go right to the airlock so that as he is preparing to venture out, he offers Aurora Mancuso's bracelet, because he may not come back. She assists him with the fit, and because she cannot go on the ship without him while he walks into the airlock, she tells him to come back. Aurora extends back into the reactor, where in actuality the temperature has hit heights that are crucial. A bolt from the reactor propels into her arm. As Jim is getting closer to the vent from the outdoors and sees the door, the temperature rises into the reactor space as he is attempting to bypass the vent home to start it. He soon knows he'll need to manually keep the hinged home open so that the reactor can vent, and then he informs Aurora. She doesn't like program, but he goes forward her to vent the reactor along with it and tells she does not want him to die, plus they argue, but he informs her she vents the reactor that they must save yourself, one other men and women it. The procedure is effective. Nevertheless, the fumes from the reactor push Jim away, and break his tether. Pressure in the fit is falling too. He informs Aurora just what happened and she moves as quick him in as she can to get to another suit and bring. He apologizes to her once again. She places for a suit and flies off to get him, but her tether is simply too brief. She actually is pulled back, but instantly grabs onto his tether and manages to pull him in. Aurora drags Jim into the infirmary, simply to see which he's already lifeless. She makes use of Mancuso's bracelet to bypass the protocols which are medical to resuscitate him. The pod that is medical the job immediately and revives Jim. Aurora forgives him. Later on, Aurora fixes Arthur. In addition, they give Mancuso a place burial that is appropriate. Jim takes her towards the infirmary and informs her that he has found a method to use the pod. This is certainly medical, a hibernation one. She is told by him getting inside the pod and ride out the other countries in the trip in there. But, as is later revealed, she diminishes and decides to stay with him, awake in the ship. Jim finally proposes to her, plus they live out their particular lives on the ship. 88 years later, the Avalon shows up on Homestead 2. The crew wakes up and discovers the ship in an exceedingly state that is unanticipated. Aurora will leave them a note, retelling the entire story associated with the life her and Jim had in the ship, even though the remainder had been resting.